This is the Freefly Ember, an $18,000 camera that can film in 5K resolution up to 600 frames per second and 4K up to 800 frames per second. It only weighs 800 grams and uses a passive Sony E-mount and has global shutter. The files are 10-bit ProRes and it records to a 4 terabyte internal solid-state drive. There's a great app that can wirelessly control record and settings. This camera is brand new to the market, so a lot of this information is subject to change, since Freefly does a great job of updating firmware with new features, as well as updating the app. There are two color modes, which are your typical Rec 709, as well as a hybrid log gamma profile, which has a bit more dynamic range. I rented the camera from Lens Rentals, which was the first time that I've ever rented from them or rented camera equipment in general. And I just have to say it was the easiest, most smooth process that I could have asked for. Lens Rentals even called me ahead of time to make sure that I had included everything I needed to use for the Ember, which I really appreciated. So right when I received the camera, before going out and filming with it the entire weekend, the first thing that I did was color match it with a color chart to my Sony a7S III using Film Convert's Cinematch software. The other test I did right away was I wanted to know what real-time speed was 616 frames per second, since that's the max frame rate at 5K on the Ember, and it bakes in the slow motion. So what I did was put the Ember and my a7S III side by side and recorded the same clip of me clapping with each camera. There is no sound on the Ember video files, so I needed a visual cue for the test. Then on the computer, I matched up the clap speed of the Ember video to the a7S III video, and what I got was the Ember was sped up by 2,578% to bring it back to real time. This helped me with my speed ramping. So the first place I went was to a water ski course here in Indiana to film a couple of my buddies slaloming. All right, so we're out here with the Freefly Ember and filming some water skiing this morning. We're at this place, unbelievable ski course here in Indiana. So just gonna check out some shots. I only had one lens that worked on the Ember, since all of my other Sony lenses have electric contacts. So the focus didn't work on any of them, even in manual mode with the Ember. However, the one lens I did have was insanely awesome, and that was the IRIX 150mm T3.0 telephoto cine lens. So when you factor in the Super 35 sensor crop, the lens became closer to like a 225mm, which gave me great reach for filming from the shoreline. It was also pretty hot outside, and every time you hit record on the Ember, the fans would kick on pretty loudly, but the camera never overheated or felt uncomfortably hot to the touch. And you can imagine how much heat is being generated with that amount of data being written. There were times on playback when the camera would glitch out a bit and I might have to turn it off and turn it back on. But like I said before, these are all bugs that Freefly will fix with firmware updates in the future. I fell in love actually with the workflow once I plugged in the camera through USB-C into my M2 Ultra Max Studio. Transferring the entire shoot of video is unrealistic for most people since the file sizes are massive. So all I had to do was open up each clip with QuickTime and trim the parts that I wanted and then save those parts to my external hard drive. This cut down big time on the file sizes, yet still maintained the HLG color and 5K detail. I didn't have a way to plug in the camera to mains power, and I don't even know if that's possible with the Ember. So I had to run it off of battery while going through the clip trimming process, which wasn't ideal since I only had rented 2 batteries, but it wasn't the end of the world. I also was able to film a Friday evening football game with the Ember. I had a concern that the lights of the stadium would flicker really badly, since that can be a problem with high-speed cameras, but it wasn't an issue in this particular case. The issue I did have, which I kind of knew would be one, was the amount of light the camera needs since the shutter speed is so high. Also, I had a T3 lens, so not the fastest lens in the world. Once it got to about halftime as the sun was setting, it just got too dark to get any usable images, even with the stadium lights on. Had it been a paid job, you could always bump down the frames per second to allow more light into the sensor with the shutter speed. The camera only has actually 3 ISO values at 100, 200, and 400. So I just stayed at 400 for the entire weekend. I was really impressed with the noise ratio in the shadows at such high frame rates. The image also cleaned up really nicely with neat video noise reduction whenever I needed it. If you properly expose and nail focus, the image is beautiful. You see details in such slow motion that you never even see with your naked eye. I actually had one of the most fun weekends in a long time filming with the camera. I have a couple other videos which show more of my footage from this camera, which I will link at the end of this video, so feel free to check those out. If you have any specific questions about my experience or about the Freefly Ember camera in general, feel free to reach out and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching.